Hey guys, it's Tim McAmis out in the shop tonight, and I want to give you an update on some projects we've been working on. So if you can see this little beauty setting here, this is not a new car. It's a car owned by John DeCerbo out of Canfield, Ohio. Had a little incident on the racetrack back end of July, sometime in there, that had a little oil, got under the tire, got the car into the wall, knocked the front end off of it, and caught it on fire, burnt up a bunch of shit, so he dropped it off at our place for a little freshen up. So this has been a rebuild, refresh, update project, and we wanted to show you some of the stuff we did, some new stuff we added to it, some stuff that John came up with, and all kinds of weird little necessities that we put on here. So John's a very particular guy, likes a super nice, clean car. He's very into everything that goes on the car, so he has a lot of input with us on what we do and how it gets done. So, like I said, this thing had to be repaired, which is no issue. We do that all the time. These cars, they get banged up from time to time, so this car needed some tubing up front and basically just an update. It'd been around for a few years, so it needed to be freshened up. But I want to kind of give you a rundown of the paint on this thing first. So we'll start with the paint. We'll go into some of the little odds and ends that we did on it. But once we repaired the chassis and put the new body parts on it, we sent it up to Steve DeCinga up in Michigan to put the exterior paint on it. He does a fantastic job, and if you can see some of the stuff on here, it's really nice. John's got a friend of his, Matt Willoughby, who did the design for the paint, and he also did the incredible airbrush work. The painting on this the detail is insane. So I'm going to give you a little rundown on some of this. I mean, you can see some of the design work. This car's got a lot of what we call like a tear paint, which is graphics work in the side. Looks like the paint's being peeled off of it. So this is all paint. There's no vinyl anywhere on it. Everything on this car is 100% painted. And the detail work is just off the charts. So, John, if you can see here, John's a very patriotic guy. And there's all kinds of things that you can see when you walk around the car. We've got the paint flows right off the roof on down the side into the back, and on the deck lid and wing area we've got the different seals for the different branches of military. Matt did all that stuff up at Steve. He worked together. Those guys worked as a team to produce this paint job, and they did an unbelievable it's an unbelievable amount of work, but they did a fantastic job on it too. So there's lots of little details all over the car that you see every time you walk around it. You see something different. And that all kind of culminates to the front. So Matt hand drew this sketch to start kind of implementing what was going to go on the hood of the car.
Fucking silencer! Oh!
And it got changed various times. And if you look at this thing, there's so many things in here that you have to pick up on. There are little things hidden in the paint that are kind of cool. You can look at it one time, you come back and look at it again, you see something you didn't see before. But you can honestly stand and kind of study this thing for an hour and never see all of the detail in this. I mean, right down to the stitching and the flag and the dog tags and the graduations on the syringe, and it's off the charts what he did with this. So hats off to him and Steve for taking the time to put something like this together, because it's just really too nice to take to the racetrack. I mean, it's unbelievably perfect in every way. So they did a nice job. They took their time. We didn't push them to get it back to us because we wanted it right. We wanted it not cut any corners on it. So we told them to take as much time as they needed to reasonably get it back to us, and they did that, and it's more than we expected. So if you ever get a chance to see this thing at the racetrack, go up and check it out. It's you'll spend a couple hours looking at everything on it. But if we get back to the chassis, other than the basic reconstruction of the chassis part of it, we did a lot of updates to the car. So there were quite a few things like now the long travel struts are popular. So when we were putting it back together, we set it up for the adjustable strut mounts and the long travel struts, which in turn creates a need for the long clearance titanium lower control arms. Those come from Modern Racing. They did a nice job on them. They come as a kit, but they have to have a high offset spherical ball on the end so the strut can drop all the way down. So that necessitated some other things. We've got the race pack linear transducers on the lower control arms, but the diameter of the tubing's different than the 4130 control arm. So we've been doing 3D printing now for about 5 years, and so a lot of the stuff that we do in prototype is printed, and there's a lot of production parts that we print now too. So these little clamps here, that is done on one of our 3D printers. So we had to kind of redesign that for the larger diameter lower control arm. But so we got the struts mounted. We upgraded to the rack is new too. So there used to be a company called Stiletto that made the rack and pinions, and Strange acquired that company. The one thing about the Stiletto racks in the past is the ratio wasn't quite right, so they've redesigned that, and then this rack and pinion now has the same steering ratio as the Pinto rack, which has been used for years and years. It's really nice. It's got a nice billet housing for the pinion to go into and the rack to mount to. Really nice. I mean, Strange's stuff is very nice. This is a very nice part from them, which gives us a rod end on each end, which is nice because we're not obligated to that ball joint type end that the Pinto rack has. Makes for a really nice, clean, lightweight setup. These tie rod tubes are 4130, but we have a process where we polish that and electronless nickel plate it so that it looks like the titanium lower control arms. So very nice part from Strange. All the hardware on this thing is titanium, every bolt, every fastener, all titanium. We got a little carried away up front here. This Braille battery mount. So while we were printing stuff, this had a fabricated battery tray and then this little fuel pump mount. So this is an EFI engine, so needs a little primer pump because it has a mechanical pump that drives fuel into the engine. So this little primer pump was kind of mounted with some clamps, and it kind of looked like an afterthought. So our guys integrated all this stuff in here. So Justin took all the measurements, designed this battery tray, and then printed this on one of our big 3D printers. So this is actually some neat material. This is a carbon fiber infused resin wire that we use for this. It is unbelievably tough, and you can beat on this thing, do whatever you want. It is not going to change its shape. So this is kind of neat. It's got the base is made from that, and then there's we actually have the ability to print a softer material. It's almost like a rubber material. So there's small little shock inserts that are mounted under the battery so that the battery has a little room, little cushion under it. So their battery's sitting on rubber shock mounts that are integrated into the bottom of the battery tray. And then these clamps here are a quick change. So you just, they have a little axle in them, and you just take that socket head cap screw out of there and flip that clamp over, and you can change that pump out in a matter of minutes if you need to. So really nice design. We integrated the same hold down system in there. We printed this out of that same carbon fiber material. This stuff is tough. I mean, it's every bit as tough as billet aluminum. It is almost torture proof. It will last forever. So we did some stuff just like integrating the charge lug connector into the battery hold down. With the 3D printing, you kind of have unlimited amount of ideas that you can do. Whatever you can think up, you can do. So really cool here. The battery tray is all integrated into the titanium mount. The hold down bolts go down into spuds that are welded into the front cross member, so the battery's mounted nice and solid, and all that is held together with some shouldered specialty bolts through the battery tray mount. Fuel cell. If you're looking at this fuel cell, you're probably like, what the hell's going on there? So this is kind of something that's new to the within the last year or so. These are aluminum fuel tanks, and they're manufactured by Murph McKinney's company, and they're really cool. They're 1.5 gallons, and they do an excellent job on them. They've got AN type threads in them, so there's no pipe fitting, so they're all O-ring sealed. The vent is in the top here, and it comes down through the bottom of the tank. So it's vented from the bottom so that if the car gets upside down, there's no fuel spill out of it. You can probably see it's right here. So the only thing is if, I don't know if you guys have seen these show up on a few cars, they're just like this tank shows here. There's no fucking way to mount this thing. I mean, it is just an aluminum tank and no provision for mounting. So we had seen some of these mounted on some other cars, and they were just hideous the way they put them on. So we're like, we're not doing that. We're going to do something different that will fit this project. So we kind of pondered on this for a while and decided to capture the tank with a small tubing system on the bottom. So this front's all titanium. So we built this system here, and then since we've got a carbon shop on site, we just made a quick little mold to make this strap. And with that, we wanted a nice clean way to attach it together. So this little fuel cell project was absurd how much time we put into this thing. But so what we did here was we took some solid 1 inch by 1/2 inch thick aluminum, and our guy Joe, he machined us out these little extruded aluminum pieces that are machined to fit, so the carbon fits down in here flush, and then these are solid rivets that are bucking it together. And then what we got going on here, so this, if you took this off, it would look like a round tube with a flat welded on it, but it's got a step in it, so it's all nice and flush. And then he machined us up these little titanium axles here that slip into the end, and then this little cup welded into this tube and is threaded. So this little axle piece, like if you took this bolt out here, this little piece would slip out the end, and then this is threaded. So this slips in and then tightens down. And then on this side, same system, but instead of this type of axle here, the axle goes in from the side. So this piece would be threaded inside instead of back drilled. This one here is back drilled for the axle to slip in. This is threaded, so then we made these titanium bushings to go in here, and then recessed that cap screw in and threaded that in. So you slip this over, thread these in, and then you basically tighten this down. And then we left an 1/8 inch gap here so that when you pull it down, then this strap now pulls this down in there tight. So this thing is mounted nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. It's mounted solid, but it literally would take 2 minutes to knock it out of there. You pull these two bolts out, the fuel cell's out. So really nice mount, nice and clean. If you see some of these mounted on other cars, I mean, we looked around just to see how anybody was coming up with a mount that looked good. Not good at all. I mean, there was some crazy, gross stuff going on with that. So we're like, this has got to be done better. So it took a while to figure out what we wanted to do, but it came out really nice and clean. And then we just threw the cap up in our CNC mill there and engraved it. A few other things up front here that we added on were, this has been around for quite a while. We sell a lot of these kits. This is our adjustable front end mount kit. So this car before did not have an adjustable mount. Because of the way this was all built and how we wanted to tie all this in, this just really fit good up here. So this is easy to mount, frame rails capped. It's got a receiver plate on here, and then this piece will accept the front end mount to slide in here. So it slides in, and then it's basically miter fit here, and then there's a tab on the tube here that slides up against this outside. So when you slide it on, you set it on here, slide it back, it centers itself up, nice and clean. Really easy to put the front end on and off. We did a couple other things. We added our remote master cylinder reservoir on this one. So in the past, we would have had the master cylinder and reservoir down here beside the frame. We've always mounted our master cylinders up in front of the firewall. That's a great location for them, but if you have to service it or add any fluid, the reservoir is kind of tight, the clearance is tight. So we came up with this remote reservoir mount, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And the reservoir is now inside the car under the dash. So if you slip the dash out of it, it's right there, easy to get to, easy to add fluid, easy to service. Gives you some more room down here around the frame rail when you're putting the diaper on. All that stuff is easier to access. So I just noticed that a couple of companies have recently copied that idea, so we get that all the time. We come up with something and then they copy it from us, so just kind of used to that. But that's a really nice option. It's really clean out here, so you just have 2 lines that run back from the top of that master cylinder back to that reservoir. Anyway, this thing's going to get picked up in the morning. It's all ready to go. Everything's set on it. It's back in action. This is just stuff that John likes to add. We added our little logo onto the edge of the headers there and welded them up, and so we added them on here. We also did some weird stuff just for John. So this was the inner door handle. It's actually only door handle on it. It's the inner and outer, but normally this comes up and has a little forward hook on it. So we made some specialty sets, put our logo in the end of it just because he likes weird, cool shit like that. So basically you just pull that back and open the door. We've got another thing that Justin came up with is these. This is the little push-to-talk button for the radio system, the communication with the crew. It normally has a little Velcro strap on that, which is kind of janky, and it's always rolled around the wrong way, and it slides up and down the tube, and it's kind of like just what comes with the kit. Well, he just designed a little clamp. It's got a small little axle in here. It's kind of like that clamp that holds that fuel pump on the front of the car. So it just slips over here, clamps tight, and then there's one little bolt over here that pinches it together. So it's nice and solid right there. It's kind of a neat little mount. So got rid of the Velcro strap and added that to this for John. So that's just a little, kind of like a little prototype piece we just put together in the last couple weeks. I think we pretty much got all the details on it. So anyway, like I said, this car had a little incident. Not a big deal. It happens all the time, and we can put these things back together just like they are when they're brand new. And this car is absolutely as good as it was when it was new. It's actually a lot better now because it got all the latest updates to the car, and he's back in action, ready to go. So check it out. If you see this car out at the racetrack, go up and say something to John. He'll be glad to let you take a look at it, but take some time and walk around it, check out the paint, check out the chassis, see what you think. If you need any help with anything, give us a call. We'll be glad to talk to you. Take care.